we're going to bring Ken Rodgers in. He's the producer of the new 30 for 30 on Deion. Now, Josh brought up a good point, which we could ask Ken about. In fact, I was going to ask Josh if he could have stayed and kind of interviewed, and interjected some interesting thing about trying to do both, because he brought up an interesting point. Ken, the 30 for 30 tonight at 9, correct?
That's correct.
ESPN tonight at 9.
Deion's double play.
Deion's double play. Josh brought up an interesting point. He tried to do it, but he said he was the quarterback. A lot more difficult to try to do two things at the same time when you have to be in the room like that.
I think that's fair. Certainly the week that we highlight in this film, the week in October that Deion tried to play both in the same day, he didn't practice with the Falcons at all. I mean, he just wasn't there.
Deion don't practice.
So he showed up, and Jerry Glanville, the coach, said, "Listen, you haven't practiced all week. I'm gonna not start you." So he had Deion stand next to him, and after the kickoff, one play, he said, "You're in."
Well, he didn't start.
That's right. You know? I mean, Deion just had that natural ability, and certainly as a cornerback, he was really one of the first shut-down corners. His job was, don't let this guy catch the ball.
Take this side of the field away.
That's it. Yeah. You know, the game plan didn't matter. It was you're shadowing this guy, and he had that ability to do exactly what you said, shut down a half of the field. So he didn't need to practice, and you know, he always says, Cheetah doesn't need to stretch.
we heard that he doesn't like the lift either.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I mean, he might be the purest athlete we've ever seen. A lot of people talk about Bo Jackson, right? And there's an argument to be made for Deion over Bo Jackson. I'm not sure Deion would make it. I think he would say Bo is better, and Bo would probably maybe say Deion is better. But Deion's the only person that hit a home run and scored a touchdown in the same week.
Yeah.
He's the only one to have played in a World Series and a Super Bowl. He is a Hall of Famer in one of the sports.
Right.
I mean, Bo Jackson, look, incredible, and he was first to do it, and the power, the home runs, the running over linebackers. But he played baseball all season long and then stopped, took a week off, and then started playing football. This film explores that time when Deion played both at the same time. And he was in the same town, which helped in Atlanta.
I think from watching the preview, the Braves were in the playoffs. It's not like they were playing.
Braves went to the World Series.
To the World Series.
They weren't playing regular season play out the string games.
No.
So the Mets we're talking about.
I mean, today everyone's talking about Kyler Murray, right?
Right.
And people have talked about Tim Tebow trying to play baseball, and Michael Jordan, of course, tried to play baseball. Another 30 for 30. Deion didn't just play baseball. In 1992, the year we're talking about, he only appeared in 97 games, but he led the entire major leagues in triples.
Wow.
Later in his career, he led the entire league in steals. I mean, he wasn't just showing up as a gimmick. He was an important player on the World Series team.
Yeah.
And then he was the Hall of Fame best cornerback in the league on Sundays.
Unfortunately for me, I saw all this, but what I remember of his baseball career was the interaction with Tim McCarver. That's the thing that I think about.
You're a real man, Deion.
Yeah.
You and everybody else.
Unfortunately, that's what I remember.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And that's in this film and explained why he felt that way. And you go back and you listen to the commentary during the NLCS, and you see that there really are two sides of this story. Deion wanted to be loyal, and in his mind, he's trying to be loyal to both teams. He wants to play for the Falcons on Sunday because they need him. I mean, they went to the playoffs the year before. They didn't make the playoffs this year. And, of course, he wants to be there for the NLCS. The Braves took it very, very badly. The Braves didn't want him to leave, even though he didn't technically miss a game, flying overnight from Pittsburgh to Miami to play against Dan Marino, maybe get hurt, certainly get dehydrated in the Miami heat, and then get back.
Your body's beat up.
Get back on an airplane, which we know what air travel does to you. Fly back to Pittsburgh. Oh, I'm here. I'm ready to go. You can see why the Braves felt like, well, you're not loyal enough to our cause. And the broadcasters, Tim McCarver, Sean McDonough, I think, felt the same way, and it certainly got the information from the Braves that a promise was broken.
Right. McCarver's always going to be loyal to baseball. Right?
Yeah,
he's a baseball man.
This film really does break down. I think a lot of people will watch, and you're either kind of on the baseball side or you're on the football side. And one side is celebrating individuality, and Deion was the biggest of that.
Oh yeah, showman.
He would high step into the end zone every chance he got.
Prime time.
In baseball, you're not even allowed to look at your home run too long, or you get
hit,
crap, right?
Yeah.
The next
There's
at bat,
repercussions for that.
Next at bat, you're going to know about it. So this was a battle of two worlds, and I think people will watch this film and they're going to come out either saying, you know what, Deion was right, it was okay to do this, or they're going to say, you know what, the baseball people like Tim McCarver were right. Why did he try to do this? He should have been loyal to a team that was almost in the World Series.
This is must-see television.
No, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Tonight at 9 o'clock.
Were there people who, teammates of his on either the Falcons or the Braves, that were so vocal in what you found in resisting his presence? Because I would think that the norm would be, hey, this guy can help us on either the diamond or the football field. We'd like him here, but we'll take the good and the bad. Did you find anybody who's just like, man, screw Deion?
Not on the team. Management for sure. I think of the Braves.
By the way, some of the
felt
people
that way.
in the Stan Katzen is in this video. Deion, Bo Jackson, Andre Rison, John Smoltz, Jerry Glanville. So Jerry Pendleton. There's a lot on both sides that you're going to hear tonight.
Did anybody toe that line?
No one felt negative about it with the Falcons, which is crazy to me that you can not practice all week and show up. I only think that's possible because of Jerry Glanville. I mean,
but you know what's interesting? Like Smoltz, the pitcher,
crazy.
who only throws it once every 5 days, you figure he might be like, well, I do it too. So,
whereas
Terry Pendleton's out there every day.
Well, and
was it like? I mean,
but the thing is, it was always that way. People forget that Deion was drafted by the Yankees and played with the Yankees before he ever signed with the Falcons. In fact, he was in the middle of a game, finished an at bat, heard he got signed with the Falcons and left the Yankees in the middle of an inning. You know, he was, and then he showed up in his first NFL game and scored a touchdown. That's where he hit a home run and scored a touchdown the same week. The football was fine with it, which is crazy to me because in many ways they were the ones being robbed because he was under contract to play football at the time, not baseball.
Yeah, but also, I mean, if you think about it, the team that he was on, nobody talked about the Atlanta Falcons until really Deion Sanders got there.
They became the Dirty Birds.
You think back to those. I mean, when I was a kid, Steve Bartkowski might have been the only name I could remember as a Falcon.
Chris Miller.
Well, okay, yeah.
Not
Chris
Johnny Miller.
But I'm saying,
Chris
like,
Miller.
if you're the Falcons, you're like, hey, this guy's bringing all kinds of attention to our brand.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think the Falcons are who they are today without Deion Sanders. He started all this. I mean, if you look at their history before Deion Sanders, they had one playoff victory in 25 years before 1992 or 91. So they win a playoff game in 91 with Deion on the team. He defined not just Atlanta football, though. He really came to define Atlanta. I mean, a lot of people remember the hip hop albums. Must Be the Money and you know. All right, they might not age that well, but at the time, you know, he wasn't just a baseball player. He wasn't just a football player. He in this town was the city. You know, he had a hair salon. He had a local talk show. He was like the Arsenio Hall that would have, you know, incredible guests on this local show, like Evander Holyfield. You know, it was a defining moment for Atlanta. The Braves were just getting good. The Hawks were good. They still had the Falcons really moving up the ladder. The Olympics were on their way. This was the early 90s in Atlanta were great.
It's unique that he was able to connect and be on two teams in the same city.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the chances of that actually occurring, this doesn't work otherwise.
Well, that's also the only way it would work.
Right.
I mean, you couldn't be on a football team, you know, in New Orleans.
It didn't.
You know?
I saw part of the preview that they aired. By the way, Ken Rodgers is our guest, 30 for 30 tonight on Deion Sanders. They mentioned that the owner of the Falcons, I think, was very pro-Atlanta, and that's why he allowed Deion, because he wanted the Braves to be successful for the city of Atlanta. Otherwise, he probably would have said, you're not doing this you're playing for the Reds.
Right.
Yeah, this was the halcyon days of Atlanta. Everybody was bonded together, and I think it's the first time that the country as a whole saw Atlanta in a different way. Hip-hop was just hitting here. You know, Criss Cross and others won
It was the
Grammys
New South,
that
man.
year.
You know what I mean? Like, really.
It redefined, really, what Atlanta was this time period. Before that, it was sort of this town that was, halfway between the African-American culture in the North. It was halfway between a sports town and a college town, a pro town and a college town. This was the first time that the city got national attention, and Deion was front and center in that.
And that one victory that the Falcons had in the playoffs prior to Deion coming there was against the Eagles in 1978.
And you were there.
Yes, I was.
That's right.
It was a close game.
Don't remember that.
Boy, I tell you, that could never happen in Philadelphia,
No.
where the football team would be like, hey, baseball team, hey, Phillies, take our star player so you can be successful as well. That city's so segregated with
imagine
their
it
sports
happened
teams.
today.
But they also had
Imagine
Ryan Jordan, who played for the Falcons, but he played for the Cardinals, right? Or was he with the Braves too?
Right, but at separate times. Yeah, so he didn't try to play at both
at the same
times.
time. Yeah. He did it at separate times.
Separate years. Yeah, separate years.
I don't know that
you
you
really do NFL and NBA, right? I mean,
Deion,
I was thinking that
Deion
too.
wanted to. So something that didn't make the film is Stan Kasten, who is now the president of the Dodgers, then was the president of the Braves. He was also the president of the Hawks. And Deion harangued him all the time. Listen, I'll give you 13 points a night. Just let me get in there. So there's a reality out there in some alternate universe where Deion, jumps in a car and arrives at Hawks games and plays once in a while. I mean, he was that type of athlete.
Now,
that's awesome.
The other involvement of this is the coverage that Deion got, with like Pat O'Brien and following him around. I mean, he's in the helicopter with him.
That's right. Yeah, and that's part of where Deion didn't think it would be. He didn't think it would go bad like it did. He thought this was an honest attempt to become, a valuable player to both, and maybe a little bit of marketing. I mean, Deion's not dumb. He knows that this is a marketing thing as well, but he was doing it out of loyalty. The fact that it was celebrated on media and that he was accompanied by a Nike representative turned it into, it's all about him. It's all about the marketing. It's all about his shoe contract. And whether or not it was, which, I think some percentage of it was, but it certainly wasn't the majority, that became the talking point. Here we go. Primetime's being selfish. He's trying to promote himself. And as we all know, the worst thing that a player can do is try to promote himself too much, because all of a sudden the dogs turn and you say, hey, we'll promote you, but you just stay humble. Deion Primetime certainly was not the humble type that would say, I'm just going to be low key.
Well, he was so used to getting those free shoes at Florida State, I mean, he needed somebody to give them to him as an adult,
That's
so
right,
Nike stepped in.
The film, by the way, Ken also did the Two Bills.
Oh,
and
that was one of my favorites.
The Four Falls of Buffalo.
Okay.
Saw Thurman Thomas walking around here today. He was a prominent figure in that Four Falls.
Apparently Thurman doesn't like if you ask about the fumble with the helmet.
Losing the helmet really annoys him.
Our mutual friend who does another radio show asked him that earlier this morning. And he slapped him on the leg. It's like, we've talked about that enough.
There's enough of that on the internet already, son.
Yeah. When you get sunned, you've stepped over.
30 for 30 tonight, 9 o'clock. Deion's double play. It's Deion Sanders following him 1 week. Braves, Falcons, and how he made it all work and tied it all together, I'm sure.
Yes, and there's a lot of things that I didn't remember. I was a freshman in college, so I had other things going on. But 1992 sounds like it's not that far away, but really 26 years later, we found out a lot of things that people will be shocked to see.
And you got a crisscross reference in too.
That's right. I try to.
9 o'clock tonight, ESPN. Ken, always a pleasure. Great work with all the 30 for 30. That's tonight, 9 o'clock on ESPN television.